As the saying goes, my friends, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I don't know what you're doing, but I can tell you that Fortitude Ranch, a network of timeshare resort fallout shelters, preparedness camps, they've called in their members who may be living in areas of potentially high tumult. And I'm putting it lightly. We have a story from the Post-Millennial. California man hospitalized with brain bleed after being beat up by neighbor over Trump banner. It was probably no more than 10 or 15 minutes later he came over to my house screaming and yelling. Well, I hope this man is all right, and I hope people remain calm and there is no violence. This election must be won in the ballot box. It must be a tremendous popular vote victory. You all need to go and vote, and then hopefully things are peacefully settling down. But the corporate press is certainly saying something else. They're suggesting it may get very, very bad. Aside from the story about this man who was mercilessly beaten over a Trump banner, they're now saying that the far right is preparing for something truly dangerous, where there's a quote. They say, fence sitting is coming to an end. You will soon choose which side you're on. That's kind of nightmarish. Can't we go back to just, I don't know, sitting in our lounge chairs, ordering wings and watching the game? It's funny because when I was young, I was like, people are so lazy. All they do is order wings, sit in their lounge chairs and watch the game. And now I'm like, let's go back to that. Because when you're young, you see these problems and you want to change them and you're wondering why they're not being changed. Then you get older and you realize it's better to reform than revolutionize. Now, there's certainly a lot of people that on the right and the left who are revolutionary. Me, I'm a reformer because I think people don't understand that in most circumstances, we can gradually come to a functioning system of change without burning everything to the ground. I look at the left and they say, Tim, we have 10 years before climate change wipes everything. No, look, man. The turn of the century, 1900s, there was horse crap everywhere. And they were like, this is it. The horse crap will drown us. And then cars got invented. Now, instead of crap being on the ground, crap is in the air. But now Elon Musk is making them electric cars, along with many others. And it's centralizing pollution. It's not solving everything. But I just mean to say that slow and gradual changes, we will survive. The apocalypse is not coming. That's an extreme exaggeration. I will say, when I was going to get breakfast over the weekend, it was a 2-hour wait. And I was just sitting here being like, I'm starting to understand Bill Gates. I'm kidding. Calm down. The left won't care that I said that. The right will. It's a joke. But take a look at this from the Post-Millennial. An Orange County man is in the hospital with a brain bleed after being assaulted by his neighbor over a missing Kamala Harris sign and a trashed Trump flag. John Mutter told an LA Fox affiliate that it all started when his neighbor had his Kamala Harris Tim Walz sign stolen from his front yard. Mutter believes his neighbor assumed that he took it because he had a Trump flag attached to his garage. He was thinking it was me because I have my Trump sign, which is the furthest from the truth. I was on the sidewalk. I knew he had a Ring camera, so I said, hey, can you stay off my property? I left. It was probably no more than 10 or 15 minutes later. He came over screaming, yelling. The surveillance camera documented the angry words between the two men. But the scene quickly turned ugly as Mutter says his neighbor allegedly beat him up and left him in the garage to die. He knocked me out. I have a major brain bruise on the back of my head. I got kicked in the face. There was mass blood. He left me there basically on my own to survive. Wow. Wow. Lourdes Barudo, Mutter's wife, expressed outrage. He could be dead right now for this man, and this man didn't care about it, all because we have a Trump flag. I just can't believe the violence. For what, a flag? Are you kidding me? It's not that. It's a cult, dude. This is what they're reading over at the New York Times. On Telegram, a violent preview of what may unfold in election day and after. Right-wing groups which use Telegram to organize real-world actions are urging followers to watch the polls and stand up for their rights in a harbinger of potential chaos. And there's January 6th. It's electioneering. This is from today. And they're basically saying, yo, there's going to be violence. I hope not. I hope they're exaggerating. And I hope everybody just refrains. Everybody. You should go home with your families, sit back, let Trump, the legal system, let this play out. But I'm going to tell you what. I was there in 2017 when the far left went nuts. I wasn't there in 2020, but we all watched online. We don't want none of that. I'm hoping that we get a clean victory and that Donald Trump sweeps, wins a national popular vote, electoral college, the House and the Senate, and the Democrats are rebuked. We tell them we don't like your ideas, you lose. I hope. I hope whatever shadow campaign fails. Because in that circumstance, I do believe things will calm down. And I'll tell you why. In the event that Trump loses, I do fear a reaction from elements of the right. I don't think it'll be a broad section, but a strong section. I was talking to Sam Cedar last week, and it's fascinating because these leftists, they don't listen to a word I ever say. It's funny because I was like, I'm pro-choice. And he's like, yeah, well, what about the instances of rape? And I'm like, I guess in the instance of rape, there'd have to be a rape kit. Aha, I got you. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm still pro-choice. Like, they don't listen. I believe the risk of a civil war igniting is higher potentiality from the right than the left. Now, hold on there a gosh darn minute. What does that really mean? It means when we see action from the right, which is incredibly rare, it is what I refer to as incredibly acute. Fringe groups, disorganized, engaging in action which is over the top extreme. The left engages in substantially more political violence, but it's blunt. So I'll give you a few examples. How often, tell me this, does the right riot? And they never do. When's the last time you can give me an example of the right-wing rioting? Figured, January 6th. But it was at the Capitol during the certification process. I call that acute, meaning it is rare that you see any action taken, but it is substantial action. It wasn't an insurrection. It was a bunch of angry people who stormed barricades and were yelling. And the only people who got hurt were Trump supporters and cops that were fighting. Like politicians didn't get hurt. It was bad. And we don't want it to happen. It shouldn't have happened. I think everybody recognized it was bad. There are a lot of people that are cheering it on, but that's not the majority. Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters, they decided to riot, and they chose the Capitol. That's bad. Democrats riot all day. Like the summer of love, it's nuts. We do get periodic, what I would refer to as sharp, acute action, but usually it's blunt in that there are, the story I was talking about where the guy was assaulted outside of his house and left with a brain bleed, I call that blunt, meaning it wasn't a mass trauma event. It wasn't at a Capitol. It wasn't shocking, and the news won't care. So the left is doing it more, but they're dodging the press. So what does this ultimately mean for chaos in this country? If the left engages in widespread rioting, you're not going to see a right-wing reaction. People will largely just say they're protests. It's violent. It's dangerous. Stay home. And that's kind of the end of it. If something happens that truly outrages the right to an extreme degree, the right, in my opinion, is more likely to engage in something like January 6th. Now, many people have told me I'm wrong, and they say January 6th sent a clear message, and Republicans are going to back away and stay away from that stuff. Fair point. I agree. Largely. The Republicans are going to be like, hey, you know, that was a bad move for us. We don't want that. We could have won legal battles. Instead, Trump was besmirched. Here's what I see as the potentiality. It's probabilistic. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, and I'm not saying it's greater than 10%. I'm saying in the event that Kamala Harris wins by any means, there are going to be angry right-wing individuals. If it does bubble up to any kind of public action, the right will take a more direct approach, which will have a larger impact. They're smarter. They're less organized in certain ways, but they'll take actions that are going to be significant. January 6th is an example. It's extremely unlikely and it's extremely rare. However, in the event it does happen, it will have a bigger impact, which I believe could ignite civil war. So I want to clarify this. I'm not saying there's a 50-50 chance of civil war or anything like that. It could be 0.2, 0.001. I'm saying actions from the left running through DC and starting fires ain't going to start a civil war. Even widespread rioting across the country ain't going to start a civil war. January 6th had more potential to start a civil war than anything else, though I think it was absurdly unlikely to get anywhere near that. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. The right almost never engages in this stuff, but if they do, it's going to be sharper, more focused, and better planned. The left is probably going to do it no matter what, but most people are going to ignore it. So what do we end up seeing? The left beats a guy up and leaves him to die, and nobody cares. The left isn't talking about it. It's not cover of New York Times. What if it was the other way around? Oh, you know it would be. That's the game. So I say this, my friends. I hope that Donald Trump wins a national popular vote. The left can riot, but what happens then is moderate default libs see the writing on the wall and say, hey, I want nothing to do with this. You guys are on the wrong side of history. And then there will be blunt political violence on the left, which is protests, riots, fires. It'll be bad. Don't get me wrong, and it should be stopped. But it's not going to be burning down Capitol buildings or anything like that. Look at what they were doing in Portland when they surrounded the federal building and they were throwing explosives at it. really, really bad, should have been stopped, but it's like it didn't rise to that level where they were capturing people and shutting down processes and things like this. I think we may see things like that. There are going to be a lot of people on the right who say I'm wrong. There are going to be a lot of people who say I'm right, but I do believe it's true and correct. And it's funny. The reason I brought up Sam is because I was talking to him about this, and he says, who do you think's more likely to start a civil war? I'm like, well, the right. And he's like, really? Oh, okay. I'm like, well, of course. What? The left is going around smashing windows and complaining about Starbucks and McDonald's. If the right does engage in any kind of action, they're more likely to do it at a government building or something more serious. But the reality is, though the left may do it more, the things they're engaging in just don't really rise to that level often enough. But maybe I'm wrong. Because one way to look at it is, I don't know, they did firebomb the White House grounds and set fire to St. John's Church. I don't think that stuff would start civil war. Shutting down an election process could be a catalyst, not in and of itself, but could be a catalyst for chaos. But it was funny too, because I told him like the left could start a civil war too. And I'm like, it was funny because Sam was asking me, he's like, you really think there's going to be a civil war? And I was like, no, I mean, the potentiality exists. It's being written about. But let me say it like this. I think I convinced him a little bit because he was like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, let's say Trump wins. Okay. Let's say he then goes and rounds up a bunch of illegal immigrants in California using the National Guard, using the military. He's like, well, I mean, I guess if Trump calls in the military, could he? It's like, well, he said he would. Uh-huh. And now the history is written by the victors. You may say that action from Trump is procedural and within the law. Agreed. That's why I've warned repeatedly, if Trump is going to do mass deportations, no military, no trucks, no buses. It's got to be granular. Local police making arrests one at a time and deportation swiftly. Because I will not tolerate, myself, trucks, trains, buses, and this kind of weird militarized operation. It's going to be bad. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be expensive, but that's what it has to be. Because if it was easy, it would just be the way. But there's the reality. If Trump starts doing this stuff, maybe the left then says, oh no, he's Hitler. And then what? Exactly. So I don't know what to expect, my friends. I don't. What I can tell you all is that I hope you've prepared for the worst, but I hope you're all hoping for the best. I hope you're all going out and doing your part, bringing your friends and your family and everyone going and voting together and just doing what needs to be done. I hope Trump wins. I hope there's no violence. I hope the left is demoralized and we just get a clean process by which we avoid civil conflict and we navigate out of a series of events and a period of civil strife where we come to find peace and things stabilize. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Show coming up tonight is going to be a blast over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. You don't want to miss it. We're here at Daily Wire Studios. That means we're going to have a bunch of really awesome people coming on the show all this week, especially tomorrow. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all tonight.